Right, hi guys, Naomi here. In this lesson, we're going to talk about all diets work and no diets work. Let's get straight into it. Okay, so something to consider straight away is that when we talk about dieting, there are a number of significant influences around what makes a diet. And if we use the word diet, it has that negative connotation in that we think about, I'm going on a diet. But really, a diet, all it is it's a style of eating. It's a dietary pattern. And in terms of the diet that people adhere to, it comes down to personal preference. It comes down to families. We tend to eat the way in which our parents did. Celebrities, fads, all those sorts of things absolutely influence how people eat. But when we think about a traditional diet, usually what is meant by that is energy restriction and increased energy expenditure. Eat less, move more. That's the idea. Now, the problem with this is that it has overly simplified how people need to lose weight. It doesn't address the complex reasons, or the often complex reasons, why people overeat and gain weight. It doesn't address, some very complex things going on inside of people's bodies that can make it quite difficult to lose weight. And the biggest problem is that when people go on diets, they usually do it themselves. They're like, right, that's it. I'm just going to eat rabbit food and off I go. And so they're not very well put together, and they often result in failure. And the more and more we fail at doing something, the more we reinforce in our minds that we can't achieve something. And that negative self-talk, that negative belief, very much sets people up for future failure. If you think you can't do something, you basically can't. You've already established in your mind that it's beyond your ability. And then every time you go to try and say lose weight, you've already told yourself that you can't. You actually believe that you can't. And so every single subsequent attempt then is hijacked by this belief. Now, when we talk about a traditional diet, again, as in I'm going on a diet, it usually ends up being low fat, low energy, and quite high in carbohydrate. It often is insufficient in protein because, unfortunately, foods that are high in protein are often high in fat as well, and there is an avoidance of fat. Now, the problem with being on a diet that is high in carbohydrate is that carbohydrate's actually digested the fastest. It's digested within a couple of hours, and so you're hungry again in a couple of hours. So you have to eat every few hours because you're hungry all the time. The problem is that if you have to keep eating all the time, there is more opportunity to overeat. There is more opportunity to make a bad food choice. You don't want to be eating food that your body digests rapidly, because then you have to, keep going back for food. It's a very inefficient way to eat. But this is where the idea of snacking has come into the picture. When you eat a diet that is mostly carbohydrate, you have to keep refueling. That's very impractical. We're busy. We shouldn't have to be stopping, every couple of hours to refuel. And if you think about, the way in which humans have operated historically, we used to have to, grow our own food, catch our own food. We lived off the land, and we were physically busy all the time. So it's very, it doesn't make a lot of sense that we would have to keep halting what we were doing every couple of hours just to go back and eat again. And if you go back, far enough, once upon a time, you had no idea when your next meal was going to come. So the idea would be to eat a meal that was going to keep you the fullest for the longest period of time, and that wouldn't have been a carbohydrate-based meal. The other issue with eating every few hours is that you completely eliminate any fasting type benefit. And there are lots of fasting benefits, which I talk about in my intermittent fasting video. The other problem with eating a diet that is really high in carbohydrate is that requires substantial insulin control. And the more you have to keep requiring insulin, the more risk there is associated with stressing your pancreas, or leading to something called hyperinsulinemia, which is high levels of insulin in your blood. And hyperinsulinemia leads into, or can lead into, insulin resistance. So that can be an issue. The other problem with traditional dieting is that it's usually dependent on excessive levels of cardio and not doing weight training with it. or not doing weight training at all. The number of women I've heard over the years who've said to me, I'll do weights once I lose weight. You know, if I had $1 for every woman that had ever told me that, I'd be a rich woman. Cardio is not an effective way to improve body composition. Cardio is an effective way to improve your cardiorespiratory fitness. Weight training is an effective way to improve your body composition. Okay. Now, there is something called the critical energy availability threshold, and this is the minimum amount of energy, and this is particularly for women, but the minimum amount of energy required to keep hormonal and metabolic processes functioning normally. Now, if you excessively restrict your food intake and then do excessive exercise, you are going to drop below this threshold. And it's estimated to be about 30 kilocalories per kilo of lean body mass. So for myself personally, I have about 50 kilos of lean body mass, which means my critical energy availability threshold is about 1,500 calories. And that's just the minimum, bare minimum amount of energy I need to keep my my luteinizing hormone pulsatility, so to keep my menstrual cycle going normally, to not spike my cortisol and not to affect my thyroid function, and to not lose lean body mass. So if you go below that energy availability threshold for too long, it is likely that your body is going to start losing that lean body mass, and you can lose bone mineral density, and you can also lose muscle mass. Now, the scary thing is that these negative adaptations can occur in a matter of days. So if you significantly energy restrict and do crazy exercise, your body can start to adapt to this energy crisis in a matter of days. And if you do this for long term, you're going to lose your bone mineral density, you're going to lose your muscle mass. And I was actually talking about this in my weight training video, where the problem that I see with a lot of women, you know, they come in and see me in their 40s, early 50s, and their metabolism is really, really low. Their bone mineral density is too low, their muscle mass is too low, and the metabolism is really, really slow. And that's because they have been energy restricting for so long, their body has adapted to that. Now, you can reverse this situation, which is really exciting. But what you have to do is you have to eat more and you have to change your training. Your cardio has to pretty much halt. You have to stop most of the cardio you're doing. I have a very specific cardio program that I get my my clients to do. It's really the only cardio program. It is the only cardio program I recommend because it's so short. And then you have to start doing weight training to try and rebuild your muscle mass and your bone mineral density. So from a dietary perspective, the reason why people get into the calorie counting is all about this excessive energy restriction. But it's important to understand a little bit of information about calories. A calorie is simply the amount of heat that is required to raise the temperature of 1 litre of water by 1 degree Celsius. And what they do in a lab is they have something called a bomb calorimeter, and it's a sealed unit, and they have the food inside of this sealed unit, and it's set on fire via electrocution, and the amount of energy that is released via heat will then heat up the water. So food that produces more heat has more calories. Now, obviously, setting food on fire in a bomb calorimeter versus, how your body is then going to digest and extract energy is going to be vastly different. So the transferability between the bomb calorimeter to the human body is obviously limited, but there is consistency. So those limitations are always there. But unfortunately, I don't think people understand that our understanding of energy, or our understanding of calories, is okay in a laboratory situation, but in terms of applying it to the human body, you've got to understand that there is going to be significant error associated with calorie counting. Your body does not set food on fire and then use that heat energy to do work. Your body digests food via enzymes. It extracts the energy out of that food and then shuttles it into our cells via some very complex hormonal and neurological signaling. vastly different. The other issue is that we actually don't really know how much energy is or how much calories are in food, like we're guessing. How you prepare your food also changes the energy density of the food. So if you were to eat food raw, like you just got a piece of broccoli and you ate it, all of the digestive process is now occurring inside of your body. So there's energy associated with chewing. You have to completely break down that food yourself. So there's more energy being expended in breaking down the food because you didn't do anything to it outside of the body. If you are to chop up your food, that's actually part of the mechanical digestion occurring outside of the body. So you're actually going to increase the overall energy available from that food because you're having to do now less work in extracting that energy. If you are to cook your food, that again is part of the digestive process. So your body now has to work less hard to extract that energy. So you get more energy from cooked food than you do raw food. Remember, it's going to be the energy that we get from food is if you calculate how much energy you have to use to extract the energy from how much energy is in the food in total, what is left over afterwards is how much energy you actually get from that particular meal. So it's not straightforward. We don't really know. Simply chopping, dicing, mincing, eating it raw, cooking it, it changes the overall availability of that meal. So it's very, very inaccurate. Plus our energy, the energy that we burn from day to day is completely different. And the energy expenditure calculations that we use are really quite inflexible. And they become even more inaccurate in specific situations. So if you've lost a huge amount of weight previously, that's going to affect your metabolic pace. But our energy expenditure calculations don't take into consideration these things. So the problem is that because we don't really know how much energy is in food, how we prepare our food is going to change it. We don't really know how much energy availability there is from the food we eat. We don't know how much the body's actually extracting because medical conditions can change that as well. You know, if you've got a gastrointestinal disorder, if you've got Crohn's, you've got ulcerative colitis, that's going to change the energy availability from your food as well. You know, all those things mean that in terms of calorie counting, it's very inaccurate. But all those inaccuracies are always going to be there. So at least there is consistency with the inaccuracies. But one of the biggest problems associated with calorie counting is that you become focused on numbers. How many calories in here? How many calories in here? And then you think it's accurate. You put all your eggs in one basket, not realizing that it's really more than anything, it's a guess. And you become focused on that rather than eating a good quality diet. It should always be about quality, not quantity. When you eat a good quality diet, you are more likely going to eat less of that anyway. Good quality food fills us up, keeps us full for a long period of time. So the message really needs to be not about eating less and moving more, but about eating better and moving smarter. Eating a better quality diet and exercising in the right way. Build that muscle. So from a pros and cons perspective, I've got a few things here for calorie counting. There are some pros because it does help us identify how much we're eating, helps us establish some consistency. And when you're not achieving your results, because you have been tracking and counting, you can identify where you're going wrong, probably a little easier. For some people, it does also give them a sense of control. But there are some definite cons. The inaccuracy for me is one of the biggest reasons why I've never done it. It's time consuming. Again, that's a big reason why I don't do it. And I don't like the way it makes me feel. It creates a sense of anxiety for me and it takes away from a natural eating style. I just want to eat food that I love. I want to eat healthy because it makes me feel good. I like nourishing my body. I like feeling strong. And so I eat to produce those results. So the research actually shows us that there's very little evidence to suggest that traditional dieting works. Restriction and increasing energy expenditure. Eat less, move more. 30 years of research shows us that this really doesn't work. I would suggest watching this video. Sandra and Mo, it is so enlightening. It's one of my favorite TED Talks. Why dieting doesn't usually work. So for us, the idea is not to diet, but what we're looking at is eating better. We don't want you eating less. We want you eating better. Eat to nourish your food. Eat to nourish your food. Eat to nourish your body. If you can catch it off the land, catch it off the land or sea, or grow it on the land. Sorry, I'm having issues. If you can catch it off the land or sea, or if you can grow it on the land, you can eat it abundantly. Food is not our enemy. It has become our enemy, but it is processed, manufactured fake food. That's the enemy. So when you're setting up your diet, you need to identify what your goals are and when you need to achieve them by. Because if you are on a strict deadline, you're going to have to be a little bit more strict with the way in which you're eating. You also need to think about your food preferences, your meal frequency, your macros. Are you going to go high fat? Are you going to go low fat? Are you going to go higher protein, lower protein? And I should say higher fat, lower fat. You know, all of this shapes what our diet will look like. And there are many, many diets that will induce weight loss, but there's very few that will do it long term because the traditional diets haven't protected that lean body mass. Traditional diets have been so restricted that we're starving. Traditional diets have induced these really bad hormonal adaptations. So we want to eat in a diet that nourishes our body, that helps us thrive, that keeps us satiated. And it's important to understand that we don't need to be perfect with our diet. We don't need to have rigidity. And the whole clean eating thing, this can reduce our likelihood of sticking with what we're doing. So your long-term adherence goes down. Your likelihood of being successful goes down by trying to be too rigid. It is okay to have a donut. It is okay to have a piece of cake. Enjoy it for what it is. Have that piece. Tell yourself, I can have one piece and be done. Tell yourself you can do that and then move on. Of course you can. The idea, I can't stop at one piece. Yes, you can. Absolutely, yes, you can. Saying that you can't is a story and it's a load of crock. You can stop at one. Stop lying to yourself. I can absolutely have one and be done with it. I'm going to enjoy that one. I'm going to enjoy it, really taste it, possibly enjoy it with a friend, and then get on with my life again. So the reason why I love LCHF so much is because it has enabled me to have a good relationship with food. I feel full. I don't feel deprived. I'm eating food that I love. I don't find it arduous. I don't feel it hard to stick to. I focus on my protein. I eat the fat that goes with it. I eat some veggies. You know, I eat in a restricted window, so I tend to eat within an 8-hour window, but I allow for the foods that I love as well, and a little bit of alcohol here and there. Life would be sad if I wasn't allowed to have a glass of red wine ever again. Most importantly, what I want you to understand is that there are many paths to good health. LCHF is simply another path. It is my preference, and I see so many people really getting good relationships with food, finally feeling like they are in control of their health by eating this way. It is my preference. But it's also important to understand that health is so much more than food or exercise. We are so much more than food or exercise. And health really is mind, body, and spirit. All right, guys, we're going to hold that up there. I hope that helped you. I look forward to hearing your thoughts about this. Bye for now.